Thank you, Esther. Good evening, everybody. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Singaporeans. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to join you in celebrating Singapore's 43rd National Day. I'm happy to be back in LA amongst Singaporeans and friends, and this is definitely Singapore weather, so it's very appropriate. Before I proceed further, allow me to thank Esther and the SABA board for kindly inviting me to this occasion. Tonight, we celebrate the Singapore spirit, the theme of this year's National Day Parade in Singapore. Looking back, the journey of 43 years that has taken Singapore to where we are today, a thriving global city, would not have been possible had not been for the Singapore spirit of our founding fathers and the prevailing spirit of Singaporeans today. Now you ask me, what is the Singapore spirit? I think first and foremost, it centers on a spirited determination to succeed, or as some Singaporeans would call it, kiasuism. But it is more than that. In a country that is bereft of natural resources, human talent is a premium. Nobody owes us a living. We've had to rely on our wits, stay relevant, and anticipate change. We have also emphasized the importance of education and focus on training and retraining our most valuable asset, our people, to perhaps the best of world standard. And some of the people are here in LA and in San Francisco Bay Area. So over the years, a culture of striving and resilience has taken root. Now this year, that culture of striving and resilience is doubly important as we are buffeted by the headwinds of high inflation. Now this is brought on by rising global and food and fuel prices globally. We have been insulated to some degree from the subprime crisis in the United States by the dynamic growth of China and India. But in recent months, the full impact of the economic problems here in the United States are being felt in Singapore and by the Asian economies. So to quote Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, we must prepare for a bumpy year ahead. But the good news is that our projected economic growth for 2008 is 4 to 5%. This has been moderated down from 4 to 6%, but I would say 4 to 5% is still a very respectable growth rate, given the softer conditions worldwide and the slowing US economy. So there is still optimism. The other good news is that the unemployment rate in Singapore remains low at 2.3%, and the job market is very healthy. We added about 144,000 jobs in the first half of this year. The other good news is that there is a strong pipeline of foreign investments that will also show up the economy. Last year we attracted about 16.1 billion in terms of foreign investment, and this year we're looking at about 16 to 18 billion, so that would hold us in very good state. Importantly, I think for our future, our fundamentals remain very strong. And we are also investing in the future in areas like biomedical sciences, interactive and digital media, and in water and environment technologies. So the second aspect of the Singapore spirit that I'm happy to highlight is the spirit of giving. In the wake of the earthquake in Sichuan province, China, and the cyclone in Myanmar, Singaporeans reached deep into their pockets to provide humanitarian assistance. For China, the Singaporean public and the government donated a total of 28 million in emergency supplies and financial aid. In addition, with the approval of the Chinese government, Singapore dispatched a disaster and rescue team to Sichuan, and we were one of the first teams to do so. For Myanmar, donations from the public and the government came to 3 million, and separately the government had pledged 5 million. We had also deployed a Singaporean medical team there. Now back in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm happy to report that the Singapore Consulate, in partnership with SABA Northern California, helped in giving back to the community we call home. In May, we hosted a charity golf event, and we raised more than $33,000 in net proceeds for the Blind Babies Foundation. It is gratifying to experience the generosity of the sponsors and the donors in the Bay Area, which are too many to name here, but to whom we are all very grateful. The third strand of the Singapore spirit that deserves mention is the spirit of reinvention. Over the past couple of years, a new vibrancy has permeated Singapore. If you've read international publications like Time, Newsweek, Monocle, or the Smithsonian, you would have read about this new vibrancy that has permeated all levels of society. So we are now functioning at a new level. Some of you would have heard about the towering Singapore Flyer, which opened about 2 months ago at 492 feet. This is higher than the London Eye and even higher than the Star of Nanchang in China. And you may also have read about the upcoming first ever Formula One Grand Prix night racing in the streets of Singapore. And this is coming up next month. So if you have not booked your ticket, mark your calendars. And over the next 2 years, 2 integrated resorts will be coming on stream. In the latter half of 2009, we have the Marina Bay Sands. And in 2010, we have Resorts World at Sentosa. We are now looking forward to the completion of the Sports Hut, Gardens by the Bay, the Marina Barrage, and the new National Arts Gallery. In the current spirit of the Beijing Olympics, let me add one more event, that is the inaugural Youth Olympics that Singapore is honored to be hosting in 2010. So stay tuned for that one. Singapore's dramatic transformation will boost its long-term economic prospects, but more than that, it will enhance the quality of life on the island. HSBC, just 2 weeks ago, ranked Singapore the best place to live in the world, after a survey of more than 2,000 expatriates. And earlier in the year, ECA International, Human Resources Consultancy, had basically given Singapore very high rankings as well. You know, there are, of course, other elements that together make up the Singapore spirit. As we look forward to the next 43 years, I'm confident that the best is yet to be. The same Singapore spirit that helped us through the Asian financial crisis, the SARS epidemic, and that helped us to create and seize opportunities in our climb to the first world, will continue to inform our progress. As Singapore progresses, so will its relations with the United States. Over the past year, we have witnessed a continued strengthening in the political, security, and economic relations with the United States. Now, this is a solidly warm and close relationship at all levels, especially in trade. So let me just, to illustrate the high level of trade, allow me to quote from the US Secretary of Commerce, who spoke at the Singapore Embassy's reception just last week to mark National Day. And this is what he said: Singapore ranks 112 in total population in the world. 112. But it is our 11th largest export market and our 15th largest trading partner. That's more than we do with some countries 10 times the size of Singapore. End quote. In case you're wondering, two-way trade between the US and Singapore amounted to 45 billion last year, 2007. Now at the state level, our relations with California are equally strong. In 2007, California exported $4.3 billion worth of goods to Singapore. Put in perspective, Singapore is California's 10th largest export market. On the investment front, Singapore is one of the top US destinations for Singapore companies, with more than 70 having a presence here. And from California, many of the big companies like HP, Seagate, and Intel continue to thrive in Singapore, with Genentech amongst the new entrants that are committed to establishing facilities in Singapore. In conclusion, allow me to quote an extract from Prime Minister Lee's National Day message. And I quote, "Despite the uncertainties in our region and in the world economy, Singapore is in a strong position. In good times and bad, we have stayed united, looked over the horizon, and moved carefully but resolutely forward. On this anniversary of our independence, let us take pride in our achievements, tackle the challenges together, and continue to build an even better and more vibrant Singapore." End quote. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I wish you all a happy National Day celebration. Thank you. Thank you, Wesley.